Hi friends! Welcome to Organic True Crime with Sydney Hopes, where I talk about true crime stories and generally spooky stories. Happy Halloween season! So we'll be talking about spookier stories this month. And today we're focusing on one specific person that was involved in the Salem Witch Trials. So that'll be fun. Today we're talking about Bridget Bishop. Bridget was born in the 1630s. She had several different last names throughout her life, so I'm just going to refer to her as Bridget. And not really a whole lot was known about her early life until the year 1660, when she got married for the first time to a man named Samuel Wesselby. I'm sorry about pronunciation, especially of names. It's not my thing. Anyway, the couple had 3 children. Their names were John, Benjamin, and Mary. And then in 1666, Samuel passed away. Later that year, Bridget remarried to a man named Thomas Oliver, and they had one daughter named Christian. The spelling was really interesting. I thought it was neat, but anyway. And he actually had, I believe, 2 children from his previous marriage, so she did also gain a couple of stepchildren with this marriage. Thomas Oliver owned at least 2 taverns, and it was said for a long time that Bridget helped run them and that she worked at them. But now it's apparently speculated, and historians aren't sure that she actually did work at them, and that will be important later. So hold that in your head. Thomas and Bridget had a very troubled marriage. They were known for aggressively fighting a lot, not like physically, but just very loudly arguing, enough to where they were brought to court multiple times about their fights. And in one instance, their punishment was super weird. They were made to stand in the middle of town, back to back to each other, with their mouths gagged, holding a sign talking about what they did wrong. Is that not crazy? Anyway, so they did have a lot of issues. And then in 1679, Thomas passed away. And at this time, the Salem Witch Trial craze had not started, but people did still accuse people of being witches a lot. And Thomas's 2 children actually accused Bridget of bewitching their father to death. But they didn't actually have any evidence of it, so nothing really came from it. But they did go to authorities and try to accuse her of being a witch and bewitching their father to death because he died of an illness at home, I guess. And it is thought that the reason that they accused her of this is because when Thomas died, Bridget got everything. And like I said, he ran successful taverns, so it was a lot. And she got almost everything. And his 3 children, her 2 stepchildren, and then their daughter Christian, got a very minuscule amount. And they were apparently very unhappy with this. Bridget was brought to court several times in her life. And at some point after Thomas's death, she was arrested for stealing brass from a local mill, and she told police that she didn't steal it. She just found it on her property, and she had no idea how it got there. And she didn't even know what it was, so she gave it to her daughter to take to town to just find out what it was, not to sell it. Okay. In 1687, Bridget married a man named Edward Bishop, and this is where she becomes Bridget Bishop. And now an important side note. Edward had a few children from a previous marriage, one of which was also named Edward Bishop. And this Edward Bishop married a woman named Sarah. And she was also someone who was accused during the Salem Witch Trials. So at this point, since this was the 1600s, records have gotten a little mixed up and confused between Sarah and Bridget Bishop, because they're both women with the last name Bishop, and they were both married to a man named Edward Bishop. So there are some things that we're not really very sure about. It gets really mixed up. So I'm only going to talk about what we do know for sure about the 2. But from this point on, it gets a little mushy. So the Salem Witch Trials was a period of what is now referred to as mass hysteria that lasted a little over a year. It started in 1692 and it ended in 1693. And during this period of time, over 200 people in Salem were accused of practicing witchcraft. It started it basically started with 5 girls who were accused. They were young teenager and younger girls who were accused of practicing witchcraft, and they said that they were influenced, and they just started pointing fingers to other people, and from then on it just kind of snowballed and everyone was accusing everybody. But one of the first few, she wasn't the first, but it was the first few people that the girls pointed their finger to was Bridget Bishop. And as we talked about before, she had already been accused of being a witch and had kind of a past with multiple dead husbands and had been arrested a few times in her life. So people didn't really question them all that much. And they had said that they met her in one of the taverns that she ran and that she used witchcraft to hurt them. Now, remember how I said that it's talked about now where they're not even sure that Bridget Bishop, am I going to do that in every single video? Anyway, they're not even sure that Bridget Bishop ever even worked in the taverns. And when she was arrested, she did say, I have never seen these girls before in my life, and I have no idea what they're talking about. Which you probably would say, but anyway. Nowadays, people think that was actually true, and she had actually never seen the girls before, and they just knew of her and pointed her out. Bridget's trial lasted for 8 days, and a lot of people came forward after she was initially brought out and accused of practicing witchcraft. A lot of people in town came forward and said, yeah, actually she has, and she's torn my coat. See, look, my coat is torn. Which that one really got me. That was an actual piece of evidence that was taken in court, that they were like, this woman's coat is torn. And she says that an apparition of Bridget Bishop showed up and tore it. Obviously that's true because her coat is torn. Even Bridget Bishop's husband at the time, Edward, did come forward and say that she worshipped the devil and that she was a witch. Even her husband. She was also accused of owning puppets, and people said that they asked her to make clothes for her puppets, and that disturbed them because why would she have puppets? Or maybe dolls? I don't know. But this was enough for her to be accused of being a witch, and she was the first person in the Salem Witch Trials to be executed in 1692. She was hanged for being a witch. So wronged, so upsetting. I mean, my coat's torn, so obviously she's a witch. That one I don't think I will ever get over that. This poor woman, I mean, she obviously went through some things in her life, and the whole town to turn around. I mean, it's not just her. Like I said, over 200 people were accused of it. I think it was closer to like 40 that were actually convicted? Is that the word I want? It just seems so ridiculous because being a witch isn't, I don't know. Anyway, she was the first of many people in this time to be hanged for being a witch. And not all of them were women. It was mostly women, but there were also some men that were accused of partaking in witchcraft during this time. Oh, and I forgot. There was one other piece of evidence that really upset me. Somebody said that she had a nubbin, which is a third nipple or an extra nipple, and that was at the time seen as a witch's mark. And so when she was checked and they saw that she didn't actually have a nubbin, she did not have an extra nipple. And instead of being like, well, that's not true, you lied, they were like, she's a witch, so obviously she got rid of it. What? And actually, on Halloween of 2001, Bridget Bishop was officially exonerated of her crime. So there's no longer a record of her being a witch. Little too late, but still, I guess, nice to do. Anyway, this brings us to where our story gets really spooky. And the reason that I chose this specific person, not only because she was the first person to be hanged in the Salem Witch Trials, but because people say that she is still around today and she still is haunting Salem. So when her husband Thomas died and left her with everything, that also included some land, and she did eventually own an apple orchard. And nowadays that apple orchard has been turned into a hotel. Or I guess a hotel was built on top of the land that used to be her apple orchard. That's one way to say the same thing. Anyway, in 1925, Hawthorne Hotel opened its doors. And throughout the years, it's been remodeled and renamed a bunch of times, but it currently has gone back to its original name of Hawthorne Hotel. And nowadays, it gains a lot of attention because of its paranormal activity that they mostly claim comes from the fact that they built on Bridget Bishop's land. And people do say that they see Bridget Bishop in the hotel, especially on the 6th floor. She is apparently known to stand outside of room 612 and stare at the door, and occasionally will pace up and down the hallway in front of the room 612. There is another room that specifically gets a lot of attention, and that is room 325. Apparently in this room, the lights will turn on and off by themselves, and the faucets will turn on and on by themselves, and also people claim to hear a baby crying while in this room, which is creepy. And I wonder, because Bridget didn't really have any babies on the apple orchard. She had children, but by that time they were older. I don't know, it's interesting. I wonder where that came from. I also am iffy about paranormal activity and how much I believe it anyway. So I wonder. I like to know the backstory of it, and I like for it to make sense a little bit. Like, for example, a lot of people say that the hotel smells like apples, that they just randomly all of a sudden will start smelling apples because of the haunting of the apple orchard, which, I don't know, I guess that makes sense. I have a hole in my sweater, and I just noticed it during this because now I can see it, and it's driving me crazy. I'm really upset I like this sweater. That's completely random and has nothing to do with this story. I just had to say it. Anyway, little fun fact about Hawthorne Hotel. If you don't know, I did actually mention this in a previous video, and if you haven't seen it, I will link it below. But Harry Houdini died on Halloween, and every Halloween people get together and have seances and try to contact Harry Houdini's ghost. And in 1990, the Hawthorne Hotel was actually the host of a Harry Houdini seance, that's pretty cool. But also, now I'm going to say, they're inviting spirits into their hotel, which I guess is like their thing because they advertise that they have haunted rooms. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about places that do that like that's their thing. They advertise like, ooh, we're haunted, because usually it is that way because somebody had a wrongful death or was wronged in some way, like Bridget Bishop, who was hanged for being a witch. And I don't know. I feel like that's not, I don't know. They're making their business, they're making their living in their way that they know how, but also it seems like they're kind of using a victim, and I just never really know how to feel about that, you know? Am I being too sensitive? Or am I not? I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. I just always kind of question that a little bit. Anyway, that was our story for today. Bridget Bishop, the first woman hanged in the Salem Witch Trials. Thank you so much for joining me on this one. I really just thought it was interesting that people say that she still haunts her apple orchard, and I wonder if that was a really important spot for her, maybe. Maybe her apples were her passion. I don't know. Maybe that's why she stayed. Or maybe because she was just really mad that they hung her for being a witch, and that's ridiculous. Anywho, thank you so much for joining me again for today's video. I hope you're enjoying my spooky season series, and I'll see you guys again soon. If you do enjoy it, please like and subscribe and leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. How do you feel about ghosts being used for profit? I guess is how you would say that. Anyway, thank you again for joining me. I'll see you again later. Bye.